Are we not going to put on our cameras, or we're going to be?
I tried. It said it's been stopped by the host.
Oh, stopped by the host. Okay.
Yeah. You'd have to. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Dr. Shegun.
Good afternoon. Yes, good to have our panelists and keynote speakers available. My good friend, Harrison, how you doing?
I'm very fine, sir. It's been a while.
Been a while. How you doing? How is work?
Work is good. Work is good. We're pushing in spite of the challenges.
Great. So we should get the whole thing started in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Do you want us to try and still saying we can't start our video because it's been stopped by the host?
Yes, we will communicate that with the technical team, technical support team. They'll be able to sort that out as soon as it's time, 2 o'clock.
Okay. Okay.
Just a minute, let me contact them for that thing to be done.
Aramosa, I guess we are still projecting from our end, right?
Yes, yeah, ideally, yeah, but I have all the presentations here in case there are any issues, and I think they also have it at their end.
Okay. But it's just that I added little modifications on mine, so if I'm the one doing it here, better. But just slight modification.
Okay.
Right. Let's have a look. So I take it who's managing the timings as well, because
So I think I'll be managing the timing, as the moderator, but as much as possible, try to say I can keep within 10 minutes. Because I think, I really want to spend more time in the question and answer section, right? So that it will be more interactive and we'll have some more practical discussions. So I guess from your presentation, just zero in on the most important points and then just get it done within, maybe like in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Good afternoon once again. The technical team are working to ensure that we have our camera restored. It will be done in another 1 minute. Then as soon as that is effected, I'll get the event started officially.
Okay, great.
Thank you for being part of the event.
Our pleasure.
So I think we have the video restored. Can you check at your end?
Okay.
Yeah, I think mine is working.
Yeah, mine is working too. Yeah.
Yes, it's working.
So
yes, I'm on as well.
Okay.
Is Mrs. Toki with us today?
Should be represented by one of our vice presidents, Mr. Gabriel Idaosa.
Okay. I just had greetings to send her from Dr. Jude Onwudili.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He said he used to manage her account when he was at Zenith Bank.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Dr. Jude actually trained me.
Oh, great.
Okay, looks like we've got quite a good turnout. 74
Yes,
attendees.
I'm 84 already. 84 now.
Yeah.
We have 84. We should exceed 100. I am so sure. I'm sure we should exceed 100. So I think right about now, the participants can all hear what we are discussing, and I think we should get it all started.
Okay. Here we go.
So are we good to go? Are we all set?
Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Our mics are working.
Great, okay. And who's going to be monitoring the Q&A or the chat? Because if people have questions and, you know, when is somebody making a note of the questions so that...
I think I would do that as moderator. I will take...
Wonderful, thank you very much, Orobosa. Okay, Dr. Bulla is here as well, so that's good. Oh yeah, it's very well attended. How many people typically attend at these events then?
Well, we have 100 at the moment. I think we should exceed 200 as people joining.
Okay.
We have 100 already.
And how many do you normally have?
Sometimes 200, sometimes 150, sometimes 100.
Can you tell, are they all mostly Nigeria, or can you tell that they're from different parts of the world? What can you actually see?
Yes, we have most people from Nigeria.
Yeah, because I posted it on my LinkedIn, so there's probably quite a few people on my LinkedIn network who are from all, predominantly UK, but all over as well, that said that they were going to join. There's somebody from Center for Renewable Energy Technology, Federal University Technology of Akure. Well, that's good.
Shogun, how are you?
Good afternoon, sir. We have Mr. Gabriel Idaosa with us. is Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you.
So we'll begin the event any moment from now, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Have you. Also, we are advised to please mute our microphone, and then in 3 minutes, we'll kickstart the event properly. Please, let's mute our mics. The event will kick off at exactly 2:10. That's in 3 minutes from now. Thank you very much.
Shegun, are you ready? Shegun, are you ready?
Yes. Good ladies and gentlemen, A wonderful afternoon to you all. It's my pleasure to warmly welcome you to this special webinar organized by the Science and Technology Committee of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the advocacy voice of the organized private sector in Nigeria. The theme for this webinar is renewable energy, opportunities and challenges in an emerging economy. It's intended to help stimulate and sustain the conversation around renewable energy and its attendant benefits to the Nigerian economy. I am Segun Alabi, Head Corporate Communications of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and your anchor for this event. First, I would like to introduce and warmly welcome the chief host of today's event, the President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mrs. Tokimabo Guje, who is ably represented here this afternoon by the Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Chairman of the Trade Promotion Board of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Is no other than Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, FCA. Mr. Idahosa, good to have you, sir.
Thank you, Segun. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen from all over the country, some from abroad. You're welcome to this event.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, I would like to also welcome the co-host of today's event, Vice President, LCCI, and Chairman, LCCI Science and Technology Committee, in the person of Engineer Leye Kupolui. Engineer Kupolui, good to have you, sir.
Thank you, Sheldon, and thank you for the good job you are doing. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Next, I would like to welcome the keynote speakers and our panelists for today's event. In no particular order, Mr. Orobosa Harrison Ibu, Climate Finance Consultant, International Finance Corporation. Mr. Ibu, good to have you this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Segun. It's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to having a good discussion with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Akitoye Oboye, Managing Director, Akalo Integrated Resources Limited. Good to have you, sir. Mr. Oboye?
Thank you very much, Dr. I'm very happy to be here and to interact with everyone. Looking forward to the event.
Thank you very much, sir. Then we have Mr. Roy Napier, Managing Director, Napier Consultancy Services. Good to have you, Mr. Napier.
Good afternoon, Dr. Segun. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Also, we have Mr. Simon Igofose, Director at Pyrogenesis. Mr. Simon Igofose, good to have you, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you from the UK and from Pyrogenesis and my colleagues. We're very happy that you're putting on this excellent event.
Great. Good to have you, sir. Also, we have Mr. Godfrey Obemudia, Project Officer, Energy, Economic Cooperation, Delegation of EU in Nigeria and the ECOWAS sub-region. Mr. Obemudia, good to have you, sir.
Good to have you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be part of this.
Thank you very much. Also, we have our Honorary Live Vice President here present. It's a pleasure to have you all here. All LCCI members here present. Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in the person of Dr. Muda Yusuf. Good to have everyone here. All other invited guests here present. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, you are welcome. I would like to invite the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who is ably represented this afternoon by Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, Vice President, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to give the opening remarks. Mr. Chair, over to you, sir.
Thank you.
Idahosa.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Akioye Ogwe, Managing Director of Akalo Integrated Business, Mr. Godfrey Obomudia, the Project Officer, Energy Economic Cooperation, Delegation of the European Union to Nigeria, ECOWAS, Mr. Roy Napier, Managing Director, Napier Consultancy Services, LLC, Mr. Simon Iwofose, Director of Pyrogenesis, Mr. Orobosa Harrison Ibu, Climate Finance Consultants, International Finance Corporation, Your Excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps here present, captains of industry, fellow officers, council members, and members of the Chamber, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the chairman of the committee, Engineer Neye Kukuluyi, the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Muda Yusuf, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mrs. Toki Mabokuje, it's my pleasure to join the Chairman, Science, Energy and Technology Committee, Engineer Neye Kukuluyi, to welcome our very distinguished facilitators, officers, and council members from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and our esteemed participants to this webinar. The Science, Energy and Technology Committee is a vibrant organ of the Chamber with a mandate to promote scientific and technology-based developments and innovations for the benefit of the economy. The group has demonstrated this capacity to deliver desired results towards the accomplishment of the Chamber's advocacy goals in the area of science, technology, and innovation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the theme of the discourse, renewable energy, opportunities and challenges in an emerging economy, is a contemporary discourse at this critical stage of the Nigerian economy. The role of energy in development cannot be overemphasized. About 70% of global energy supply today comes from fossil fuel, which in turn contributes to climate change challenges. Nigeria's energy sector remains largely underdeveloped. Similarly, global trends, it is not surprising that a significant fraction of the country's energy consumption comes from non-renewable sources, such as coal, natural gas, and other petroleum products. The resilience of the Nigerian economic sector is weak, as climate change, poor governance, and widespread poverty exacerbate the vulnerability of the energy economy. The challenges of energy security and access are compounded by inefficiency and poor environmental governance, while side effects, including oil pollution and gas flaring, continue to damage the environment, farmlands, and marine ecology irreversibly. While oil plays a large role in the economy, the high rates of energy poverty in Nigeria is worrisome. According to the World Bank, 56.5% of Nigerians have access to electricity as of 2018. This is relatively low compared with African peers like South Africa, 91.2%, Egypt, 99%, Ghana, 82.4%, Kenya, 75%. From these numbers, it implies that about 44% of Nigerians have no access to electricity. A large chunk of this percentage resides in rural communities. Power consumption per capita is incredibly low in Nigeria relative to peer nations. Nigeria energy consumption per capita is about 145 kilowatts hour, according to the World Bank, considerably below the average level of 3,631 for the BRICS nations, for all the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Nigeria is endowed with sufficient renewable energy resources to meet its present and future development requirements. Renewable energy has considerable potentials here. It could bridge the major areas. Opportunities for rural energy in Nigeria alongside other developing economies are becoming much more evident. Switching to renewable energy sources in Nigeria will bring a much needed development to rural areas, reduce significantly health costs, foster energy independence, and climate change mitigation. With less than 60% of Nigerians on the national grid relying on fossil fuels, it's not sufficient to meet the energy needs of the country in the foreseeable future. Renewable energy alternatives have the potentials to increase energy supply and availability in Nigeria. Despite the abundance of renewable energy resources, the country lacks peer countries in renewable energy development and utilization. We acknowledge that the present administration is making efforts to reform programs and policies to attract private participation that will encourage renewable energy development. However, there are significant barriers from financial and technical perspectives, and these barriers need to be resolved through strong collaboration between the private and public sector for these further efforts to achieve desirable outcomes. Advanced economies are gradually tilting towards renewable energy resources. Searching for viable alternatives early enough is of vital importance to a country like Nigeria. Very distinguished participants are resource persons and experts in the global and domestic energy space. And I strongly believe in their ability to do justice to this theme. Once again, on behalf of the leadership of the Science, Energy and Technology Committee, I welcome you most warmly to this webinar. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vice President, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Chairman of the Trade Promotion Board of Lcci, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, FCA. Next, we have our first speaker, Mr. Akitoye Oboye, Managing Director, Akalo Integrated Resources Limited. Sir, you have about 10 minutes, after which we'll have the second speaker. Over to you, Mr. Oboye.
Hello. Thank you very much for that. I would like to confirm if you can see the presentation, please.
Yes, the presentation is live.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity once again, and a big thank you to Mr. Idahosa for the fantastic introduction. I would say it's made my life a lot easier since he has covered a lot of things I would have spent time on. In order to understand the opportunities in the renewable energy sector, in an emerging market, I'll use Nigeria as a case study. What I would say is best to focus on the reforms that has happened. And these happened in 2005, mainly about the Electric Sector Power Reform Act. Initially, we all know that we started with what we call NEPA. And this went on from 1960 to 2005. A single vertically integrated state-run utility company A lot of investment went into it, but we would say that the maintenance culture was not the best, and there was gross mismanagement. We all know the story. The Electric Sector Power Reform Act was passed in 2005. It led to the unbundling of the utilities to generation companies, distribution companies, as well as one transmission company. And the intent was actually to privatize these companies, but the transmission company remained under the purview of the government. Fast forward in same 2005, the NIPP projects were launched, and this was 5 billion for 5,000 megawatts of power. Then later on, 2013, the DISCOs and GENCOs were also privatized, and now private sector is allowed to participate in the electric power sector, which is why we're all here right now. In 2004, before then, we had about 6,000 gigawatts of power generation. In 2019, it was estimated at 12 gigawatts, which is 12,000 megawatts. The next slides would indicate and put this into context about the level of shortfalls that we have in the system. So another overview is that we can break it down into fuel supply, generation, transmission, and distribution. I will not dwell too long on this so we can get into the meat of the renewable energy matter. But right now, 85%, about 80 to 85% of Nigeria's power energy mix is primarily gas-fired. Only the balance of 15 to 20% comes from renewable energy sources, mainly hydro, and this is for on-grid power, not all the power, including the ones in our backyards, I'm sure we all have. So what you have is, we have a capacity of 12,000 today, but the gap is actually over 30,000 megawatts. Estimates have it as, some say it's 20,000, some say it's as much as 80,000 megawatt hours. And in each area, one can play in it. That's generation, transmission, and distribution. But as I said previously, transmission is still under the purview of the federal government, meaning you can provide services there. However, you cannot own a grid transmission company, as the case may be. So generation and distribution is where private sector is, where the private sector is really playing right now. We know the challenges in the power sector in Nigeria. There's severely obsolete and inefficient transmission and distribution networks. There have been a lot of projects, the Power Sector Recovery Program by the federal government, as well as donor agencies such as the World Bank, has tried to address some of this to provide some needed capital investment into the downstream side, which is the distribution side of things, as well as backstopping the Nigerian bulk Lcci trader to be able to provide liquidity. There's also low level of efficiency and billing in the DISCO. It's not just, I say billing, but yes, there's also collection inefficiency. How many of us are able to pay on time? How many of us receive the meters that we've actually requested? Capacity gap is there in terms of manpower and training them as well. Vandalization and transmission and distribution networks, and overall, there is an overdependence on gas-fired generation. So what happens is, if there's any problem down south in Nigeria, it has a domino effect for the entire power chain. And renewables could serve a long way in addressing these issues. And I think to just highlight on the low levels of efficiency and billing, in 2019, only about 40% of the invoices that the DISCO should have settled to the bulk trader were actually settled. What that means is that you have a ripple effect, meaning that the bulk trader cannot in turn settle the power generation companies. And what this does is that commercially, it puts the entire value chain in dire straits. But there is hope, and really it's because power generation and distribution is open for private investment. And in this case, we have about 6 classes. On-grid power generation, which is generation greater than 20 megawatts evacuated into the national grid. The tariffs are regulated by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, which is the regulator. They set this via the MITO, the multi-year tariff order. Better generation is supplied through a distribution company's network between 1 and 20 megawatts. The tariffs are regulated as well if you're supplying it into a DISCO. although not as highly regulated as selling into the national grid. Captive power generation is any power generation above 1 megawatt. Actually, in strict terms, even if you have 20 kilowatts, your generator in your background is captive power, but you only require a permit for greater than 1 megawatt of power, and it's entirely self-consumed. You generate it just for yourself. Off-grid, or as we like to call them, IPPs. In strict terms, they are also off-grid. Captives are also off-grid, but the difference between off-grid IPPs is that they actually sell the power. And also you need a license for that as well. The tariffs are not regulated. It's done on a willing buyer and willing seller basis, although the NERC's consumer protection and competition and rates would also be involved in determining the prices that you're willing to charge before you acquire your license, because you need a license for that. And the independent electricity distribution network allows a private entity to set up a distribution network at various voltage levels. And also you could either be connected to a public power generator, or you build your own power generation to put into the network. And this is also greater than 1 megawatt. I think where we've seen most of the activity in the past 3 years is the mini grids. And these could be connected to a mini grid is essentially a cluster of very small used customers. It could be a remote community somewhere built up of anywhere between 100, even 50 to 1,000 homes. But typically what they all have in common is that they are typically less than 1 megawatt, or else you need a different type of license to do that. So with this context, we could go into a bit more about the various type of renewable energy power supplies that we have in Nigeria, since we're using it as the case study. Hydro and solar are the proven renewable solutions in Nigeria. Why? Because they are the ones that we have the most abundant of. There's at least 100 megawatts of renewable electricity in Nigeria. When you add the hydro dams, you have, I would say, above 700, give or take, in terms of what is operating capacity. In terms of hydro, you have on-grid, Kenji, Jeba, and Shiro existing, Mambila, and these are all privatized, by the way, in the 2013 exercise. Mambila and Zungeru are planned, and embedded, you also have Nesco in Plateau State, also has a hydro station there that sells power into an embedded network. That's Nesco's own distribution network in the south of Jos. Biomass, right now, it's just captive power, self-generation that we've seen at commercial scales. This is evidence to some food companies. There's a sugar factory that I've seen with as much as 10 megawatts of biomass, a biomass power generation facility. What it does is that it heats bagasse, and in turn to drive steam engines and produce power. So it's only able to do this when there is raw material for it to use. It uses its own raw materials, which is very efficient. You also have solar power on-grid projects in Nigeria. I think a few people here would know about the 14 projects that are waiting to go on the grid. There is about 1,500 to 2,000 megawatts waiting to go on the grid, but there are all sorts of issues which we'll talk about later. Embedded generation, there's a 10 megawatt captive project in Kano being developed as we speak. In terms of captive, there are abundant examples, and whenever we drive by, we probably see the roof systems. You look up, I would say almost every 10 houses now, you see some solar panel or the other. Off-grid, that's where you're actually paying somebody for the solar installation that's been put, and you have power as a service, and you also have commercial and industrial power projects. And mini grids, which I have explained, just this time you're using solar to do them. And wind is relatively unproven in Nigeria. There's been a few attempts by the Renewable Energy Commission of Nigeria to prove this. But
hello, Mr. Boye.
Sorry?
Mr. Boye, you have about 5 minutes to round off.
Thanks, Dr. Labi. So yeah, wind is relatively unproven. And happy to have a lot more discussions about this at the Q&A session and after, and even after. Now let's look at the market opportunities. The solar home systems in Nigeria, basically, because it's estimated that we're spending about 4.4 million on diesel costs, 4.4 billion, sorry, every year on diesel cost. The idea is that if you can provide a solar solution that is cheaper than running diesel or petrol as backup generation, at least during the day, substantially, you can save a lot of energy there. There are a lot of companies involved in this. We'll discuss that later. The Bloomberg New Energy Finance research report commissioned by Responsibility has also done a lot to look at commercial and industrial solar. Commercial and industrial solar is solar power supply to either factories, which can be manufacturing, universities, schools, educational institutions, you name it. Agriculture also falls into that category. The costs have been dropping drastically. For instance, 5 years ago, nobody would have believed you could do power supply for anything less than 60 naira per kilowatt hour or 70 for solar power. Now we've seen that in a lot of places, it can significantly beat the grid cost of power, and there are practical examples of these projects. And developers out there are developing this all the time. 20 megawatts was the capacity of installed CNI projects in Nigeria in 2018. That has gone up 2019 to about 50. And in 2020, easily about an additional 20 megawatts has been commissioned already this year. And what is really driving this? It is the reduction of the capex costs of these solar systems, in essence. Also, you look at different market opportunities, such as telecoms towers. There are about 28,000 of them in Nigeria, spending about 2.5 billion annually on power. And only 2% have a reliable grid supply in there, another huge market there. Bank ATMs have also been proven to be powered by this. Access Bank, Sterling Bank are pioneers in this field, working with different companies to achieve this. You also have industrial clusters that places such as Ogun and Lagos are planning to be able to power with solar. About more than 2,700 communities in various states are also being powered in this manner. And the REA, Rural Electrification Agency of Nigeria, has done a lot in this space. These are, what I've done here is to put various companies offering various solar power solutions, from your very minute solutions, less than 10 megawatts, 10 watts, which is just enough to power a very low energy bulb and charge your phone, to CNI solar, which could power a whole manufacturing facility. In essence, yes, it's tied into the grid, and it could also work with battery storage. In essence, what we have here is the evolution of solar to be able to come into these various sections, such as captive rooftop, where it's built on the roof, and is demonstrable that these are actually saving costs for customers, as well as making money for investors. We also have the mini grids and the micro utilities. For instance, there are markets here in Lagos and in Kano that are being powered only by solar as we speak. The mini grids, we've already spoken about that, very extensive installations all around the country, and there is very good support from the World Bank there, investing in the Nigerian Electrification Project along with the REA, providing subsidies for companies involved in this. The challenges in the renewable space are basically exchange rate volatility. A lot of the money that we're getting for this, or the products, are in foreign currency, in dollars. And we're not able to predict what Nigeria's exchange rates would be. We know the story that happened in 2014 and 15 with the oil price drop. And now we're seeing it again in 2020 with the price drop in oil again, as well as coronavirus, putting pressure on Nigeria's foreign exchange. A lot of these projects have horizons of about 5 to 10 years. The tariffs are not cost reflective for the grid. So it's hard for someone for any investor to say, I want to make an investment in the grid, if we cannot tell exactly where the tariffs will be in 2 years or 3 years. Revenue collection is an issue as well. There's insufficient access to suitable financing. This type of projects need long-term financing. Yes, DFIs are there, but the commercial banks still have rates that are too high for this. I would say BOI is doing quite well in this. There are facilities that they have to grant as low as 9% over 10 years over 5 years for these projects. And there's also inconsistency in the application of duties. In a lot of places, at least to push for adoption of renewable energy technologies, there's been a push, especially by the associations, to drop the duty on solar panels as well as inverters. These are still there. The liquidity shortfalls that we mentioned in the past because of the lack of collection from the fiscals as well. The subsidies in the for the alternative fuels are also a bit of a limiter to how much solar could actually penetrate the market or other renewable energy courses as well, solutions as well. Just to quickly wrap it up, there are different ways to partake in the renewable energy space in Nigeria, which is our case study. There's energy efficiency management to reduce how much is actually being spent, and demand side management. There are value-added service where you have a cluster of mini grids made up of 2,000 communities. You can provide services such as insurance, banking, and the likes to them as well. Trading and supply of system components. I'm sure we drive every 1 kilometer on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. You almost see a shop selling solar panels over there. While there are also the big companies associated with OEMs, and in due time, we'll probably be able to start manufacturing in Nigeria. That's if we can address a few of these issues. Project development, essentially putting together financing as well as customers and building the project from scratch for bankable customers. Financing, once we're able to prove, because of these companies I mentioned earlier, that the sector is now viable and people are actually making good money, returns as high as 25% IRR over 15 years that I've seen, and they're able to pay their debts, then for sure, the lenders will be more interested in it. Engineering, procurement, and construction. The people with the technical expertise to build these projects are there. There are many companies doing this now in Nigeria, and the skills are there. So the investors don't necessarily have to worry about looking for foreign companies to come and set up in Nigeria and add to the cost of the project. This is, I would say, one of the biggest reasons why the price of construction, the capex costs, have also reduced. And then you also have operations and maintenance of the systems. And one can play in any of these verticals as well. Yeah, that's it from me. I would like to say a very big thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions during the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akintoye, for the presentation. We'll be moving straight to the next presentation, which will be done by no other than Mr. Godfrey Ogbemudia, Project Officer, Energy Economic Corporation of the EU Delegation to Nigeria and the ECOWAS sub-region. Mr. Ogbemudia, the floor is yours. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, let me try. Sorry, excuse me, please. Just give me a second.
Ogbemudia.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to.
Okay. We can hardly hear your voice.
Can you hear me? But I'm finding it difficult to share my screen.
Okay, okay, we can hear your voice now.
Or can I, maybe I can volunteer to share it from here, if you can. Let me see if I can share it from here.
Oh, okay, okay.
But
Thank you very much, so.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Okay, yeah, we can see it now. Yeah, so you're fine now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Please, would you mind putting it in presentation mode? Thanks.
So you can hear me, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Okay. So I will just go straight. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this. Mr. Akintoye has really made my work very easy. So I will just run through the slide very quickly. We all agree that the energy system has been changing over years, starting with the coal age, through to the petroleum age that peaked around 1965. But now we're beginning to see, though we still have a lot of fossil fuel in our system, but renewable energy is beginning to come into the stream as quick as possible. In 2018, we had around 25% of the global electricity generated from renewable energy. And
at least
drivers for me, the issue of climate change and the cost that is beginning to go down. Look at the cost of solar PV per watt, right from 1976 down to 2016. But again, you see a sharp reduction in that price from $100 per watt down to 0.23 cents. And so that's, for me, it's one driver for the reason why we're beginning to see more renewable energy come into the mix. And also, as a result of the environmental and climate change challenges that we have now, the global commitment in Paris 2015, it's making a way to ensure that we mitigate the emission of CO2 and reduce it within 2 degrees. This was just to show the global share of renewable energy as it is released by ARENA yesterday. But I will leave this and quickly go to the renewable energy potential that we have. We have in Nigeria. Nigeria has great potential for wind, as was said, talked about by the first speaker, solar and large hydro, small hydro. But anytime I have the opportunity to talk about the potential for renewable energy in Nigeria, I always want to make reference to this slide here about Germany. Now, last year, if you look, okay, first of all, if you look at this map and go down to the red part of the map, you see that indicates where more of the solar irradiation is supposed to be. And if you look at the highest irradiation you get from Germany is around 1.3 kilowatt hour per meter square, and still not as big not as high as what we refer to as the lowest in Nigeria. Going back here again to see 4. The lowest here around 3.54 kilowatts. But in Germany, the highest, it's even less than half of what we have. And as of last year, they generated 49 gigawatts of electricity from solar alone, which contributed to 8.9% of the total electricity generated in Germany. So Nigeria has that huge opportunity and potential for renewable energy to meet all our energy demands at the moment and beyond. If you look at the access gap currently, it's worrying because this is a data that came out last 2 months, produced by the UN, tracking SDG 7, which shows that currently Nigeria tops the first 20 countries globally with access to electricity deficit, with 85 million persons still without electricity. And so that's a big challenge in our hands, but not what the country cannot surmount. Our great Albert Einstein will always say that in the middle of difficulties lies opportunity. And so these difficulties that we are faced with right now, it's where the opportunities are for renewable energy here in Nigeria. If you look at the generators, we have petrol generator all across the country, over 22 million petrol generator at the moment, worth $12 billion in terms of market value, and also the diesel generators there. these are what the renewable energy solution should be looking at, targeting at replacing on the grid, because these are not off the grid. These are generators being used as a backup to the grid. This is a functional grid in the main grid. Then off the grid, RIA data shows that the market value there annually, it's around $9.2 billion. That is huge for any kind of off-grid energy solution to come into the space. And so I will not dwell so much here because the first week I really talked about the different investment opportunities. But I want to point you to two key benefits I love so much about renewable energy, in the sense that it gives you that it doesn't contribute to air pollution. And what you have with using generator, the polluting nature of a generator that is killing people annually in Nigeria, 1,500 deaths per year from the smoke of generator. It's something we should be looking at as replacing. Then job creation, also another benefit for renewable energy here in Nigeria. Just last year, this report came out that 2017 to 2018, renewable energy space produced 4,000 direct employment, as well as 9,000 informal workers in the space. And it's been projected that between 2022 and 2023, we're going to be having up to 52,000 direct jobs coming into the space. And so this is something we should begin to embrace. If we look at the challenges, just want to add to the challenges that have been enumerated before, but I find the quality of equipment that comes into Nigeria is another issue. We have some equipment, solar panels, battery inverters that are actually substandard, that when you embark on a project using this equipment, you experience those failures that you wouldn't want to have. And so it's a big challenge. While talking about these challenges, I will quickly also talk about what the European Union here in Nigeria is doing to address this. We know that the Lighting Africa project by IFC has really done a lot in terms of standard for solar home system. We are now beginning to, we're working now on standard for solar panels and battery through one of our projects, the Nigeria Energy Support project implemented by GIZ. We are looking at this standard for solar and battery to see how we can quickly address this, supporting the government in addressing this. Finance, as he said, is a big issue. Most of these renewable energy projects are projects that need long-term finance. And so what we have at the moment, you don't have any bank that can do more than 3-4 years. I was speaking with one of the banks, commercial bank, last month, and they said what they have is three years and interest rate around 2017. That's really not the type of financing a private investor will want to look for. So we are also trying to address this with the grants that we're providing. We have within the 11 TDF that started from 2014 up, will be running up this 2020. We have an envelope of 150 million euros with which we are supporting different energy projects, renewable energy project here in Nigeria. So we are providing grants. We're also doing some type of blended finance with development financing institution like the Sunray project implemented by AFD, the French Development Agency. We have a grant there. They have the loan component there, but our grant is helping to make the borrowing terms very friendly for the developers that will in turn take those facilities. And so that's what we're trying to do to help address this issue. We have been financing the first, between 2015 and 2017, we deployed 6 mini grid across Nigeria. It was the success recorded from this mini grid that the World Bank, AFDB are now beginning to build up on the Nigeria electrification project. So, and still we are now looking at diversifying our support now that we know that the mini-grid is doing very well. It's now beginning to attract foreign investors into the space. We are looking at developing the interconnected mini-grid space right now. About out of the 11 discos, 10 of those discos participated, and we have private developers here in Nigeria working with those discos in their franchise areas to develop this mini-grid project. We hope that in the end, by say next year, we should have this mini-grid running in Nigeria. And so I also quickly want to talk about the issue of policy. Has never been a problem in Nigeria because we have very good policy, especially in the renewable energy space. We have the Nigeria Renewable Energy Policy, the ones that were developed under it, the Renewable Energy Action Plan, Energy Efficiency Action Plan, all of them, they are there. But the implementation, it's actually the challenge. For example, I would really want to talk about the import duty on solar. Initially, it wasn't there, but last 2018, it was reclassified, and that was brought in. But meanwhile, it was stated in the
Mr. Bemudia,
yeah.
You have about 5 minutes to wrap up.
Right, I am almost done.
Okay, sir.
Yes, so I'm just running up, just trying to optimize it. So that policy has always not been an issue in Nigeria, but it's the implementation. Then paucity of data for planning is another issue. If all developers, investors outside and inside can get access to data that can aid their planning, and it will be very, very good. And that's what we are doing currently with the Ministry of Power, trying to set up a data management system where you have locations that are suitable for mini grids, for solar home system, for grid extension, all mapped out, and with information about the location in terms of the size of the population, as well as the kind of economic activity that you can find there, because we are very, very passionate about productive load use in the application of renewable energy as a means of electrifying the unelectrified. And so we are working with them on that data. Hopefully very soon, before the end of the year, it will be up and running. I think this is my last slide, but I would just want to say that all we are doing here, we're with the Nigerian government, and we are here to stay, continue to support the government in trying to ensure that those who are yet to be connected are connected. Of recent, the European Union came up with the EU Green Deal, which one of the major objectives is to make Europe climate neutral in the year 2050. And so it's driving all the policies, especially around climate change, renewable energy, externally, the way we cooperate with our partners. And so we are going to be having more of renewable energy projects, more projects that support the government and taking up clean technology. And now that we're beginning to talk about green recovery that is backed up by renewable energy, clean technology, we want to see how we can continue to support the government here and also play our part to support the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bemudia, for that wonderful presentation. We have next presentation from Mr. Napier. Mr. Napier.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just share my screen. So I've been 35 years in what started as the oil industry. I saw it transition into the oil and gas industry. In the last 10 years, I've been watching it transition into the energy industry. So I'll be presenting the private perspective on how I see the renewable industry developing in the medium to short term within Nigeria over the next few years. So I'll touch on investors, the payback period and the transmission, which is really setting the scene, and then talk about localized generation, the need for storage, which is a key ingredient of renewable energy. We'll talk a little bit about push and pull power agreements, which have been used quite well in other countries. And then a little bit at the very end on where the big dollar money is. So for the investors amongst you, the businessmen amongst you, where we see the big dollars coming from in the construction of these industries. So specifically looking at the large investment, the big capital projects, which are government-funded projects, there are easier places in the world for international investors to spend their money on power generation projects. So that means that there are less dollars available to subsidize the Nigerian renewable energy industry. Many of you will have seen that the very large government projects, if they go over the term of one government, they tend to get dropped and not finished because they were the pet project of the previous incumbency. The rest of the world look at that and it reduces the confidence in their ability to invest. There have been cases of policies changing effectively to do a tax grab or a money grab on the oil industry was a recent one just recently for the deep water agreements. So that type of experience for the large investors, for the large companies, means that there are concerns in place which slows down the very large, the billion and trillion dollar, billion naira in investments. There isn't quite the supply chain set up at the moment. I've been watching the chat as I was talking and I'm seeing quite a few comments come up on the chat about the availability of Nigerian providers of solar panels, about the availability of Nigerian companies providing those spare parts. So that infrastructure for the operation and maintenance to keep these facilities operational is not quite there yet. And again, it leads to investor concerns. If you're going to spend all that capital money on something and it breaks down in the first year and you wait 18 months to get the critical spare parts in, you're not going to be earning the sales revenue from your new investment. There's a little bit of liability concern. There is a significant amount of electricity theft within Nigeria. The larger companies are always concerned about the liabilities of people dying while stealing their electricity and being held accountable for not effectively ensuring the safety of the public. The return on investment, even though the price of operating, the price of the capital investment is dropping thanks to their expansion in other places in the world, we still have the shipping and the import and the duties to pay and the Nigeria premium, which is added onto these. So by comparison to other power generation means, the capital cost is still quite high and the return on investment is still a longer curve compared to other generating. So this is an extreme example. So renewable energy was running somewhere around 10 to 12 year payback period on average across the world. I've factored in some higher operating and maintenance costs because of the import duties for shipping and the logistics to get spare parts and just a premium on everything. And when I ran the numbers, it could be up to 20-year payback period on some of the larger renewable projects in Nigeria. So very much high-level figures here, and I've really taken the worst-case example here, just as an example of why the investors tend to consider that there are easier places in the world to spend their money. Our two previous speakers have mentioned the discos and the lack of a national grid. So for those very large projects, we do not have the national grid infrastructure at the moment in order to take very large power generation facilities and take that power to market for them. So moving on to really the direction that my opinion and my talk is going to take is that I see the money being spent in the smaller communities. I believe that the renewable power industry within Nigeria will be driven from the bottom up rather than from the top down. I believe the government will talk about renewable energy quite a lot. And while that's happening, I believe that the public will start spending their own money on their private power generation, their community power generation, their company power generation, because they start to see that it becomes economically viable. So we're going to see certainly wind, solar, hydrogen I'll talk about a little bit. I believe we're going to see this, I've said, looking after yourself. So did I see a figure earlier of 2.2 billion gen sets currently in Nigeria, which the people are using? One critical aspect which has happened just recently is that the World Banks and the IMF have been pushing our government to reduce subsidies and remove fuel subsidies completely. You may have noticed if you topped your car up with fuel in the last couple of days that the price of fuel is going back up again. After it came down, the subsidies were removed, and now the price of fuel, so the price of diesel for your generator, is now going to start increasing. It's now going to lose its subsidies, so the price of fuel for your generator is going to get more and more expensive. That is going to be a critical element in the individual households, the individual companies, and the individual communities now looking for their most cost-effective power generation technique. And I do believe that in some cases, wind and solar in particular are going to come out as the most cost-effective generation technique for their small communities. So that, my opinion, is that this is the shape of the market that we're going to see in the short to medium term, where wind, solar, hydro, if you have a river close by, are going to become more reliable, simpler to install, and cheaper. And it will be self-sustaining, because once one Nigerian installation company turn up in one city, they will start, oh, did you hear that we've got this? Oh, did you see what they've done in Kano? We need to copy that. Call that man. Who's got the contact details? So that small to medium sized work will take off. I quite like this Makani concept. It's been dropped recently. It was a joint venture with Shell and a university, but kite-driven wind turbines. So the most expensive part of a wind turbine at the moment is getting the land, proving the land ownership, and erecting the tower to hold your turbine on. There's possibly something here for small communities, for small villages, to have a kite which generates their own electricity, and when the wind blows, you just put your kite up in the air. So things like this, these very nice little small water wheels which you drop into the water in your local stream, your local river, generate your power when you need it. Again, small scale and suited for that particular household community. Solar, from very small, we've mentioned so many houses are now getting solar panels on their roofs. This is going to extend. I can see farmers now, and in the UK and Europe, many times when you drive around, you see farmers' fields with a combination of sheep and solar panel. The solar panels are 2 feet off the ground, the grass still grows underneath, and they can still feed the animals in the same fields as having solar panels. So farming communities could easily start combining fields of animals with fields of solar panels. Medium-sized enterprise. The one awkward thing about the majority of renewable energy is it doesn't always get generated at the time of day that you want it. Most households require power from 7 p.m. onwards, after the sun has gone down. The sun has been shining, if you have solar panels, for the previous 8 or 9 hours, not when you actually want it. It's all very well shining on your house when the house is empty, but you need a suitable technique to store the energy which you've just created while the sun was shining. The wind blows sometimes, it comes in front of the storm passes through, it goes quiet. So your wind turbines are not reliable. They generate fantastic electricity, effectively free of charge when the wind is blowing. But you need a technique to store that power and then release it when you actually need it. So hydrogen is actually being used around the world, where you take your solar and wind power, you use it with water and electrolysis, and you simply generate hydrogen by separating the H and the 2O from each other and generate hydrogen. And then you can use your hydrogen as a power source for your genset, either combined with diesel or running on its own, to generate your power when you do not have wind, water, or the sun shining. So I do see...
Sorry, Mr. Napier.
Close
Mr.
up?
Napier,
Okay.
you have about 5 minutes to wrap up.
Thank you. I'm on schedule.
Thank you.
So there are some of these hydrogen plants already in place across Nigeria, generally being used to top up diesel supplies at the moment. It actually leads to a more efficient energy burn of the diesel and a complete burn, and it increases the power generation per gallon of diesel to almost 98% from 85%. The big power packs, so these are the ones where I actually see, as private investors, private businessmen, I do actually see these huge battery packs as being one of the next 10 years majority of business opportunity for businessmen and investors within Nigeria. There is going to be far more electricity generated. Already we see a large number of people do have battery packs in their houses. These are becoming far more widely available, better technology, more efficient. So I do think that this is a business opportunity around Nigeria for power storage from renewable energy to then be released on demand. I mentioned at the beginning that some other countries, specifically Germany, were the first ones to start this. They understood that when you generated power, sometimes you generate more than you need, but when you use power, sometimes you need to buy more than you're generating. So a lot of the German marketplace went quite quickly to forward and reverse meters. So you could buy and sell your electricity from the 1 meter. And there was no further licensing, there was no further contract agreement required. For this to work in Nigeria, I do believe that a similar push and pull type power agreement would need to be put in place. So the big money. There's many businessmen here on this forum today who are, and I've seen the chat. How can I make money from this? How can I get involved? How can I get some money out of this? So I believe that a lot of the businessmen on this group will be more interested in the initial capital investment, in the sales of the equipment, in the procurement, the engineering design, the overall project management of putting the capital investment in, because it eliminates that original investment concern, which I spoke about at the beginning. We've also touched on the lack of metering being delivered, the lack of people simply paying their bills. So it eliminates all of that risk. So I do believe that 90% of the Nigerian businessmen are going to concentrate on this: construction, installation, inspection, verification, getting that aspect of the industry up. There will be less of an appetite for the long term, the long run, dealing with poor public in the north of Nigeria who do not have the money to pay for the power that they've already taken. So thank you very much. That's everything I have. I'll be happy to take questions when we get to the question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roy, for that wonderful presentation. Right now, we want to have the last presentation before I hand over to the moderator to coordinate the proceedings hereafter. So it's my pleasure to welcome Engineer Simon Igofose for his presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just trying to see how I can share my screen. Of course, technology always, here we are, great, I found it. Okay, well, thank you everybody for being so patient. You've waited all this time to hear me. I'm the last presentation. I hope I make it worth your while staying all this time. I am a real live innovator, inventor, engineer, bioenergy and biofuel specialist. And my company Pyrogenesis, which was co-founded by myself and Dr. Joseph Ecke, we generate renewable energy and biofuels from agricultural and manufacturing waste. So we're offering a solution. There's been a lot of talk about different types of technologies and solutions, but this is the one that we have actually invented. We built our prototype. We're at the stage now where we're bringing this technology to market, and we've chosen Nigeria as the first place that we want to launch our product. Both Joseph and myself, our families are from Nigeria, but we've both trained in the UK. So let me tell you a bit about Pyrogenesis and what we do in our technology. I just need to find the controls. Right, so we turn waste materials into renewable electricity and heat using an advanced thermal technology that's called pyrolysis. Well, our activities at the moment, we're currently leading multiple Innovate UK projects, and I'll tell you a bit more about Innovate UK later. I definitely recommend you check them out because they do pay Nigerian companies. So we're leading multiple projects funded by Innovate UK to test different feedstocks and capabilities of our technology. We plan to run 10 pilot plants in Nigeria by next year. By 2023, we envision delivering 100 waste-to-energy units that will increase energy access across Nigeria. And that's core to our strategy. Nigeria is an excellent place to demonstrate our capabilities. So who are we? We're a fast-growing clean tech company, and we're developing innovative solutions to solve the energy and waste problem simultaneously. And we do that using our PyroPower technology. So let me tell you a bit more about PyroPower. It converts agricultural waste into renewable heat, electricity, and biofuels. So how does it work? Well, we've got a lot of farming communities in Nigeria. So like when you harvest cassava, you're going to throw away a lot of stuff in the bush. You're not going to do anything with it typically. Right, so we can, if we're working with local communities, we want help with collecting that, aggregating it, bringing it to our plant. And then if we're working with factories, and let's say you're producing like a cassava starch factory, you produce a lot of pulp, you might produce a lot of peel, and that again is waste that you've got to get rid of. So we can use that as well, okay? Or like if you're producing rice, you'll mill rice, you'll have a lot of rice husks, and you want to parboil that rice as well typically. So you're going to use both heat and electricity. So we love factories who produce waste. Now we can put that waste into our PyroPower machine, and it goes through the machine, and the machine converts it into different outputs. The beauty of pyrolysis is that it does give us other outputs that we can use. So you're probably most interested about the power, right? So the calorific content of what our machine converts your waste into is what we can use as a fuel to generate electricity. We also get heat in the process, and using that heat, we can actually convert that into cooling using something called an absorption chiller. So we can actually produce refrigeration from heat. As a byproduct, we get something called biochar, which is basically like charcoal. And that, but the difference between our charcoal and the normal charcoal or firewood is that the process that we've put it through removes a lot of volatiles. And those volatiles are the things that give you your health problems. So we're producing, in effect, a smokeless fuel that you can use for cooking, and that has reduced health hazards. We can also, with one of the other byproducts that we can produce from our system is something called bio-oil. And bio-oil is a liquid biofuel, which we can effectively use as an energy store that we can feed back into our system if we were to run out of, say, like the other fuel that we're using. but it can be stored as a liquid fuel. Now, at the moment, we're trialing additional features with the help of Innovate UK, and this is to provide additional benefits to the market and to address needs. So one of those things that we're developing is plastic waste disposal. There's a lot of sachet water in Nigeria. All those plastic bags. You know, I was in Nigeria in January. I couldn't believe the amount of plastic rubbish I saw all over the place. Terrible. So you know, we want to do something about that and clean it up. So using plastic as a feedstock that we can incorporate into our system is something that we're currently investigating, and we're hoping to have a solution for that, you know, within the next year or so. One of the other things is that the bio oil that we produce, this liquid biofuel, we also have a project, again, funded by Innovate UK, where we're upgrading that and developing it into a bio kerosene, so renewable kerosene. And then that kerosene can be used for lighting and for cooking purposes. This is what our prototype looks like. Okay, so this is going to be our demonstrator pyropower unit. It's in a 20-foot container. There's me and there's my good friend Claudio, and Claudio is from a company called ICMIA, and ICMIA helped us to effectively, basically make sure that we could build this technology, because we designed the process, but we needed a specialist, a company to help us actually manufacture this, and that's what they've done. They've helped us to put it in a container, which means we can ship it from Europe to Africa or anywhere in the world, and then once it gets to the port, we can, you know, put it on the back of a lorry and send it to anywhere in the country, and then very easy, very quick to install. Hopefully within a day or two, you know, we can have it operating and generating electricity in an off-grid community. So this is why we recognize that Nigeria was a perfect market for us, because we need something that's quick and easy to deploy. And also, it was music to my ears what Mr. Napier was saying earlier, because, you know, speed is the essence, especially this World Bank facility that has to be spent by 2023 and electrify 10,000 communities. Now, how that's going to happen, that's going to take a miracle, but I believe in miracles. So this is what our unit looks like. The full commercial scale will, of course, be bigger than this, but still hopefully contained within 20-foot containers. So pyropower as an energy access technology. Typically, we know that most of the mini grids and in Nigeria are running off of solar. So we're approaching this problem by saying, right, well, we wanted to develop a solar hybrid compatible power generation solution. And that could be used as the power generation for mini grids. Because as Mr. Napier was saying, the sun doesn't shine at night. So rather than charging batteries all day long, what we will say is that the solar can carry your electricity load by day, and pyropower unit can carry the electricity by night by converting your agricultural waste. By day, what we're doing? Well, we're making biofuels, liquid biofuels. So that's how we store energy. So we're converting into liquid biofuels. The electricity is our system. It's containerized, 100 kilowatt size, and that's of course meaning as 100 kilowatt. We don't need to get permits or licensing. We just need to register with NERC, and we can work with mini grid operators, existing mini grid operators, because we're not a mini grid operator. So we're looking to work with anybody who can set up mini grids as quickly as possible. There's thousands of them that need to be set up that we, that World Bank facility will help finance. So we want to work with you if you can install and operate mini grids. And then we will generate the power from the waste provided from a farming community, and we will give it to you, and you can go and collect the money. We just want to deal with one customer per site. Right. Another aspect that we've been looking at is rechargeable batteries. You've typically seen them in, especially middle-class homes, big truck-sized batteries, and these are like UPS home systems. So we could be recharging these, and we've got partners that we're working with that can do much more efficient batteries, so that those are rechargeable batteries, just like bottled gas. You can bring your flat battery, we charge it, you collect another one to take home, and then you just replace it. Okay, so that model I think is going to be really good in an urban setting. The heat that we produce. Now, process heat for light industry, such as gari frying or rice parboiling, is essential for many of our manufacturing industries in Nigeria. So this is something that we're going to be able to provide. We also realize that water is an issue. We've got lots of water sources, but they're not drinkable. So we can convert heat into potable water through distillation and sterilization processes. Then the biochar that I was mentioning, we get this solid fraction, which is effectively charcoal, but we are working with partners at the moment, again, funded by Innovate UK, to convert those into biochar briquettes, and we can sell those as smokeless cooking fuels to compete directly against firewood and charcoal that's responsible for deforestation and poor health outcomes. So what is our environmental impact for our technology? Well, potential to drive carbon sinks. So biochar, because it's produced from organic matter, the organic matter takes CO2 out of the air, then we convert it into a solid form of carbon. And then when we also have a product called Nutrichar, which we're developing as an organic fertilizer. So when you put that biochar into the soil as an organic fertilizer, that's a solid form of carbon that's now locked up for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So it takes carbon out of the environment. Deforestation. Okay, so if we're displacing firewood and charcoal used for cooking, hopefully we're going to impact on that. We don't know how much, we'll have to measure it, and that's what we've got partners that are going to be working with us on that. Reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So there's a lot of biomass that gets burnt, or just, as I said, it gets left to rot in the bush or on the farm in the form of agricultural waste, and that produces your methane and your nitrous oxides, which are very polluting, much more so than carbon dioxide. So by taking that waste and putting it through our system, we avoid that because it's a contained process. Displacement of fossil fuels. So if we're converting stuff that would have decomposed into methane, which is much more polluting, and also at the same time, we can produce a kerosene alternative for cooking and lighting, then we've got rid of fossil-based kerosene. So we see that we've got many benefits that we can bring communities and improve the situation in Nigeria. But we've also got social and economic impacts. One of the biggest things that we're really keen on, and especially, you know, in the West, and especially in UK, is all about, you've heard all about gender equality is really at the top of the agenda nowadays. So this is where like investment, and overseas development aid goes to support initiatives that demonstrate that it's improving outcomes for women. And given that most women, or not most women, women are typically the ones who are often responsible for cooking. And I've got cousins, I've got aunties who I see them sweating in the kitchen over a smoky fire. I've seen that back in my father's village. You know, improving or reducing the smoke inhalation problems is going to improve outcomes predominantly for women. The other thing is that our equipment needs to be maintained and operated. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is giving women access to skilled work, because we want to recruit women and we want to train women as plant operators and maintenance technicians. So we've got a project that's working specifically on that. Now, this also has economic impacts. So collection and supply of agricultural waste is not something that you guys are doing at the moment. Okay, it's just lying left to rot in the bush, but we could be purchasing or not purchasing really, we're going to pay for people to collect and transport that material to our installation. So that's going to generate jobs in the rural community that weren't previously there. And there's a lot of waste. So that's a lot of jobs potentially. So the more of our units that are converting it, the more jobs for everybody. But we need to keep costs down because of course we need to produce electricity from this, and the cost of that electricity needs to remain low. So process heat, that can be used to support local food processing, crop drying, you name it. There's lots of different things that you can use process heat for. And then this is what you use to then, well, combined with electricity access, creates economic growth. We kickstart an agricultural industrial revolution in Africa, in Nigeria, because we are after all the giant of Africa. Right, benefits of pyropower business model. So I heard about, yeah, CapEx, OpEx, all that kind of stuff. Well, you don't have to worry about that if you're a community. Just come and talk to us. What we're looking for is clusters of installations. So if we can have a minimum cluster size of 10 installations, it makes sense for us to go and take a good look at this, because we will own, install, and operate and maintain our equipment. So that means you don't have to use your cash to do any of that. What we do is that we sell electricity, and we sell heat, and we sell biofuels. And we do that using power purchase agreements and offtake agreements. Okay, so we've already got partners in place for these things. That's how we make our money. So the advantages of our model then is that we reduce capital expenditure, especially if you're going to have to purchase electricity generating assets and you're a mini grid operator. We therefore are able to provide communities, especially off-grid communities, with affordable, reliable, renewable electricity. And we can scale this according to local demand. Okay, so because our system is modular, it's in a container. If you want, so it's 100 kilowatt. If you want 200 kilowatts, that's 2 containers. If you want half a megawatt, that's 5, right? So, and then we can even make it fault tolerant because we can build it up as an array of mini grids. And then that means that if one goes down, you've still got a network. So we reduce downtime associated with routine maintenance that you would typically find on other power generating installations. Because it's a containerized unit, we effectively send another replacement out from base, we install it, we get it up and running, and then we switch it over before we even shut the other one down. You won't even notice the switchover. We then shut the other one down, put it on the back of a lorry, send it back to base, fix it, it's ready for the next install.
Thank you very
okay,
much,
so servicing
Mr.
and repair, you shouldn't even notice. Okay, that's my team. Thank you very much. Okay, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take it in the panel Q&A.
Thank you very much, Mr. Igofose. We appreciate your thought on the topic of discussion this afternoon. At this point, I think I need to step aside for the moderator to coordinate the proceedings going forward from now. Mr. Harrison Ibu is the moderator. Mr. Harrison Ibu is a renewable energy consultant with the International Finance Corporation. Mr. Harrison, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
So over to you. And I would like to use this opportunity to please advise that we all put on our cameras so that we can have a better take on all the panelists and our keynote speakers. So please let's put on our cameras so that people can see you and then know the particular person speaking at a time. So moderator, Mr. Moderator, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shegun. Thanks to all the officers of Lcci for organizing this, and all the panelists. You've made very wonderful presentations. And I can see here we have so many questions. We have over 50 questions. I'm not sure how we're going to answer all of them, but at least we'll try to see how much of them we can answer and see what kind of follow-up mechanism we can put in place. So my name is Orobosa Harrison Igbo, which is quite a mouthful. My friends actually just call me Robo, for short. I'm part of the climate finance team in IFC. Over the past 4 years in Nigeria, we've had this sustainable energy finance program where we basically organize market awareness programs like this for trade associations, for businesses, for them to understand that renewable energy can also be part of their energy mix. And we've also worked with solar companies where we partnered with training, for them to train their professionals on solar installation supervision, and mini grid design. Last year, we trained over 300, we gave scholarship to over 300 solar professionals in Nigeria, for these trainings. And we're also working with GIZ and USAID to see how we can have a certification body in Nigeria that will basically certify, solar professionals. Solar energy being at this stage, the most popular, renewable energy, in Nigeria. But of course, waste energy, wind energy, and small hydro, they're also gradually picking up. Then one of the last things we do also is to work with financial institutions, because typically these projects are relatively small. It's not what IFC would directly fund. So we work with local financial intermediaries like local banks, where we provide funds to local banks for on-lending to these kind of renewable energy projects. Like we have a couple of most of the banks, half of Nigeria banks basically are our clients, either investment or advisory clients. And when we give them any facility, we have what we call the climate finance covered of maybe 25% to 50% of such funds should be used for climate, finance related projects. Yeah, so now let's go to some of the questions. So I think what I would try to do is to kind of group some of the questions, right? So to see how we can maybe address some of the questions. So I have a couple of questions here that are addressed to the first presenter, Mr. Ogbeli. There are a lot of questions here directed to you. right? But I think I also want to ask my question, before I ask these questions. So you said something about that with your calculations now, solar energy can beat the grid, right? So I think you
Absolutely.
need to, yeah. So you need to explain more about that numbers, because the word out there in the market is that solar is really very expensive, and that even if you have a cost reflective, tariff in Nigeria, solar will not be able to compete. And you also said something about the CAPEX, right? That the CAPEX is reducing. Yes, people will say, internationally, right, the CAPEX might be reducing, but in Nigeria that might not be the case, right? Because we have this forex, challenge where the naira is losing value. So in naira terms, though it might be going down in dollar terms, but in naira terms, it might actually be increasing. So do you think that is still the case? And again, there's a pre-COVID and a post-COVID world now, right? Because I can remember, I spoke to a couple of developers, and they'll tell you that, look, before COVID, and after COVID now, their projects have increased by maybe 40 to 45%, right? So are you talking about the post-COVID situation, or are you talking about the pre-COVID situation? So I don't know if you got these three questions: the cost of the grid, and the CAPEX, and also challenge about pre-COVID and post-COVID in terms of the cost of the projects.
Thanks, because I would say that I've known you before, so I'll call you Robo instead of the long name, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, thanks. So in terms of I think these are really good questions. And in terms of the cost of solar versus grid, for sure, we know that in Nigeria, we have 11 distribution companies, and these 11 distribution companies all have varying customer classes that have varying tariffs. The cases that we'll look at are for commercial, industrial, and even the higher level of residential customers, R3 and R4. In the north of Nigeria, absolutely, you have solar PV only systems that are installed to reduce the cost of your electricity. They don't have battery backup solutions. These could, on a naira per kilowatt hour, if you work with a good project developer, which is essentially what Akalo Energy, Akalo does, you would have power supply from your panels as low as 20 to 25% less than your grid cost. So if you're paying, for instance, 38 naira per kilowatt hour, you could get that at 34 naira per kilowatt hour. And this is, I would say this is dependent on your operating regime for a factory. For a home, Mr. Napier did allude to that. It's the majority of the load is at night. But for a factory, you can save as much as 25% of your cost if you operate 7 days a week. And if you operate, it's 25% on the grid price. And if you actually operate only during the day, you operate one shift. Because one of the problems we know that renewable energy has, which is also addressable with adequate storage, is especially solar, it comes only during the day, right? However, if you operate a daytime shift and you don't have nighttime operations, very significantly, you would see even more huge drops in your power supply. And this is why working with a developer, what we tend to do is that we actually take a very critical look at your solution. We're actually not selling you equipment. We sell you a solution. If we have a 10, 15-year agreement with you, we know that it's in your interest and it's in our interest as well that we're offering you savings, or else you would try every way to get out of that contract. But as I said, back to the numbers. Solar power supply is usually doing 34, 35, 36 naira per kilowatt hour now. And the grid prices for the industrial customer classes are as high as 47 naira in Jos, 44 naira in Kano. In Ecodisco's territory, yes, it's about 36. And this is all inclusive VAT. In Ikeja Disco, we're talking 40 naira. So you can see there's savings to be had. And one of the big things that is going to happen very soon is either cost reflective or service reflective tariffs. We know that the grid tariffs have to increase because there's been pressure on the forex for a long time. And so straight from generation all through to distribution, it needs to happen. And the NERC has published an order in December 2019, and we're going to possibly see up to 60% if it's cost reflective. If it's service reflective, then it's based on how well your service is. But the main point is that if today we can beat the grid price for commercial and industrial customers, and even home systems, if the conditions are right, what you begin to see is when tariffs are increased, it becomes even more viable. So that's the answer to the first question about costs. Now, CapEx, you mentioned, it's a good point. Yes, because majority of the components are actually imported. What is actually a lot of our projects that we've worked on, it's essentially what we have, we make sure that a certain component proportion is manufactured in Nigeria. So you always have mountain racks, for instance. We get all of that from Nigeria. The cables, the wiring we usually get from Nigeria. But yes, majority, I would say about 60% of the cost of the system is imported. And what you see is that as Forex increases, the Forex rate increases, the Naira depreciates. There's a knock-on effect on the total cost of the system. However, even though in the last 5 years, you ask yourself that question, in 2015, the dollar was 150 to, sorry, 2014, it was 150 to a Naira. And now it's about 450, 470, depending if you're getting it from CBN or getting it from black market, or I don't know which aboki you use, you know. At the end of the day, you see a 3 times increase, right? We can tell you that this is what's happened. Now, the cost of solar in that time, in 2015, we were seeing numbers about $2,000 per kilowatt for installation of C&I projects. Now we're seeing 700, we're seeing 800, I've seen 650. What this tells you is that while there's inflation in the country, that something that was, look at the prices of everything in the market from 2014 to today, it's doubled in a lot of areas. But what you then get to see now is that in Naira terms, if I had asked you, you know, Robo, please bring out money for 100 kilowatts, and you'd have brought out, let's say, 20 million Naira, you would actually be spending, let's say, about 22 million Naira on that CapEx today. You know, these are example numbers, but my point is you can see the difference, the inflation that has happened across all sectors in Nigeria. In terms of solar CapEx, it's significantly less. But also, what I would also say is that in terms of CapEx, that is why you have essentially project developers and pay-as-you-go services willing to take on this upfront CapEx and offer you savings from day one. You don't put in any CapEx and you save energy from day one, in essence. Okay, so the next question is pre-COVID and post-COVID. I would say, in terms of fundamentals, what has really happened pre-COVID and post-COVID? Post-COVID, home systems, a lot of us are home a lot more. We are feeling it more now if electricity is not good. So people are actually looking for more alternative systems. And this happened right at the cusp of before the lockdown, when people were not sure how they would actually get petrol. They were not sure how they would get diesel. So what people did was that they then looked and said, okay, what is easily available? The advantage about a solar system is that it could be installed in a day, right? Sometimes you talk about other generation technologies, and it could be installed anywhere as long as the components are available. And as I said, the opportunities are also in trading and supply and procurement. So a lot of people are selling these things. So it was very easy for people to actually buy these systems and provide themselves with backup power. What happens if I can't get petrol? Okay, at least during the day. If I can invest in a lot of battery storage, that would power me 24 hours. At least during the day with a minimal amount of battery storage, I will have some power. So this is why you would have seen an increase in solar power projects. Now for commercial industrials, there will still be an increase, but it would have slowed down simply because there is uncertainty in the market. And those industrial manufacturing companies, or even malls, schools haven't opened, right? So I was in talk with I am still in talk with a very big university about supplying power to them. Agreements are laid out, but even the analysis we did before COVID would have changed because universities are now offering online degrees. They've been offering them since, but a lot more people are taking that option. We don't know how often people will stay in hostels again. So this is the reality, pre-COVID, post-COVID. So, and that's another beauty, as I said, working with a good developer. What you would see is that we will do the analysis, because if it doesn't pay you, it actually doesn't, it doesn't pay the developer either.
Okay.
I don't know if that's answered your questions, or you like me
Thank
to.
you. Yeah, no, I think that's enough for now. Thank you, Akintoye. And I will come back to you, but I think at this time I want to go to Mr. Godfrey Bemudia. There are a couple of questions here regarding government, and finance addressed to you that I want to address to you for you to look at. The first one here is talking about the price of renewable energy products, that they are quite expensive in the short run, but have proven to be better in the long run. What is the government doing in order to reduce the cost to the average, Nigerian, right? And so another question related also is asking, are there government policies in place to aid the renewable energy, transition? So, you spoke about some, engagement, with government. And maybe to put a kind of, flair to that from my end is to know, okay, how do you support the government in terms of implementation? Because you did mention that, okay, the issue is not really about policy, but it's about, the implementation of these policies. So what kind of support do you provide the government to see that they implement some of these very laudable policies, that they have in place? Then, I don't know, let me just combine it because there's so many, and let me just see if I can add one or two to it. So someone also asked them, Mr. Bemudia, what are your thoughts for solving the financing problem for renewable energy? And that you also didn't mention that you give grants, right? So how does this grant work? That please, we would like to have some information about this, because they have a C&I project in Southwest Nigeria that they want to raise money for, and it has not been easy. So that was a question about government, about funding, and how your funding and your grants work. And maybe again, just to add another flavor to that from my end, is to say, okay, so there's this school of thought, right, from where I work, that look, grants are not really sustainable, right? So grants are really very short term, and if they are not well used, at the end of the day, they will not become even creates a bigger problem down the future, right? So, but you didn't mention blended finance. So it'd be good to know how you kind of blend, your finance, because that's in a bit might be more sustainable, since there's some commercial money there to make sure that the project survives, the grant, period. So how do you structure your blended, finance instruments? Do you work with banks, and can any developer or any company have access to such, blended finance solutions? So I don't know if there are too many questions, or you're okay with this. Hello, we can't hear you. Hello. Hello, Mr. Godfrey. Hello, can you hear me? Hello. So if you can hear me, let me know. I can't hear him. Godfrey, we can't hear you. Hello, can you hear me? Hello. So Akintoye, can you hear me? You can hear?
Yes, I can, Robo.
Okay, but can you hear him? We can't hear Godfrey.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Okay, I was saying that let me just walk it up from the bottom down based on the question you have asked. On blended finance, for example, the Nigeria Energy Support Program, currently we have two projects. The mini grid acceleration scheme and the interconnected mini grid acceleration scheme. What we do is to provide our grant that covers for 50% of the total finance for each project per connection. For example, if a connection will be around 600 euros, we provide 300 euros per connection for each of them. But the way it's done is 40% is, yes, 50% grant, 40% debt, while 10% comes as equity from the developer. And so that's how we structure the support under the mini grid and the interconnected mini grid project we are currently deploying through the REA. We actually deploying this through the Rural Electrification Fund project that REA is implementing. And so, but what we do is our funds only cover the distribution assets, not the generation assets. We call it the split asset model for us, where even if in the end, whatever has been done, that distribution asset belongs to the government and the people or the community. So if at a point they are no more satisfied with the services being provided by the developer can take his generator away and they can renegotiate again with any other developer who comes in and put his generator and then begin to distribute. That's how we have structured our blended finance. Then I want to quickly talk. You talked about what are the supports that we have. Like I said, apart from the grant project, the grant supports to developers, we also have other innovative financing. The Electrify product. For that Electrify Nigeria window, we have a global window, but we have a specific window for Nigeria, which is a 30 million euro project that they don't do grant, but they do debts, equity in Nigeria. And so far we have funded, supported quite a lot, some developers here in Nigeria. We supported Energy, we supported GVE, we supported Pan Africa Solar, and we are currently working with some of those partners that are in the World Bank REA mini grid project as well, and through that Electrify that does debts and equity financing. Okay, so even if you don't get grants, there are other instruments that you could also assess that can help you move your project ahead. We also have the Sunref project, sustainable financing project implemented by the French Development Agency, where we have two grant components there. An investment grant, as you get a loan from the AFD component. For example, you want a 10,000, you are requesting for a loan of $10,000. You get 10% of that as an investment grant from us at the end of your project. Once it has been implemented and certified, correctly executed, you get that grant from us. Then there's another grant component, basically for technical assistance to ensure that bankable proposals are developed by developers, as well as the capacity of the banks we are working with to be able to do to appraise proposals that are sent to them by developers. So those are the instruments at the moment we have in the sector that try to address the issue of financing outside the technical assistance we provide in this space. There was another question that talked about what support we are giving to the government on policy and regulation. Yes, we, like I said, the Nigeria Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency policy was supported. We supported the government in drafting that through our Nigeria Energy Support Program implemented by GIZ. That was done in 2015. We have also supported the REA in drafting the Rural Electrification Strategy and Implementation Plan, which actually was a condition precedent to operationalize the REF. And so then other documents like the NEC mini-grid regulation was also supported. We also, our project supported that, the government NEC in developing that. And that's really opened up the space. Now, investors who are going into the mini-grid sector are very confident of their investments, that even if the grid encroaches into that place, there is a way they can always get their investment back. And so they feel very secure because of that. So we try to, where we see policy gaps, we find a way to work with the ministry and the respective agencies under the ministry to get these policies there. We have also noticed that, yes, sometimes the weakness in implementation of these regulations are there. We are also now beginning to work with them and picking out these lapses, working with the ministries, the concerned agencies in collaboration with the association, like the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria, to see how conversations about issues around tariffs, issues around unfavorable implementation of this policy are addressed ongoing. It's an ongoing issue, even if the result is not at the moment yet delivered, but it's a working process. I want to also let you know that we do this through the Nigerian Energy Support Program, which is our key TA project in Nigeria, co-financed with the German government. But we are in phase 3 of this to help us have the opportunity to continue to do what we're doing. We are very hopeful that what is being done will continue to improve by the day, and we will be there very soon. Finally, on my side, I think I don't know if I have gotten all, Robosa, I don't know.
Yes, I think that's fine. That's fine for now. Yeah, thanks a lot, Godfrey. Thanks, for that. And please, just a quick reminder, right? So we have a feedback and a evaluation form for all participants. Please kindly take out some time. We just take you a couple of minutes to fill those, fill the form at the end of the webinar. Please, we really need your feedback and your evaluation to be, to enable us, to hear from you, and also see how we can better, prepare and deliver webinars, in the future. So now I have a couple of questions for Mr. Roy. So, there are a couple of questions in the platform, in the question chat box regarding manufacturing, right? So there is this concern that we do import most of what we use, in Nigeria, and that makes it very, expensive and not, affordable, by Nigerians. That is it possible for us to manufacture in Nigeria? And there's some questions around that we have a manufacturing plant, already in Nigeria. And someone was also asking if the quality of such, will meet, the standard that, we'll be able to use for good solar, projects. Then to add my questions to that, right? It's interesting to hear you talk about the Nigeria premium, because we know doing business, at times can be very challenging in Nigeria. But you did mention a 20-year payback period from your own, models, right? But if you look at the Nigeria economy, the Nigeria market, we're very short-term minded. So if you talk about, if you go to a banker or, go to a finance house and you talk about 3 years, 5 years, they'll say that is too long. And now you're talking about 20 years. So that would be, like a non-starter for most investors, right? So I'm just trying to know, looking at your models, right? Is there any way this 20-year, payback period can be compressed to a 5 to 7 year, payback period, right? To see, okay, is there a way we can still make it work within 5 to 7 years? So that's my first question. Then it's also good to hear from you talking about that, look, for Nigeria, that the way you see it is from bottom up, right? That the government is not really going to put the right policies in place in time for the industry to scale. So I want to hear from you. What do you think we need to do more, right? What do you think organization, like LCCI, businesses, the donor community, even the development finance, community and other investors, what do you think we need to do more to be able to build the market from bottom up so that the market can scale faster than the organic, growth that we are presently witnessing? Then lastly, from my end, you did mention hydrogen generation, right? Affordable is that, producing hydrogen and using hydrogen to fuel, our generators. Is it cost effective? Is it something that a medium-sized business will be able to do? Do we have very small scales, very small scale that is affordable that small businesses can also use? So
thank you very much. So on the initial manufacturing side, it does need to come. So for the entire Nigerian economy, for any industry at all, there's been investment in free zones. We have the new Lcci free zone. They were initially directed at the oil and gas industry because the oil and gas industry formed such a large portion of the dollar budget of the Nigerian government. Those free zones are pretty well sitting empty. So initially, as I said, it will be driven from bottom up. So the import cost of the more simple, small to medium-sized wind turbine in particular, there's not a huge amount of high-level technology in the turbine from a wind turbine. They could be assembled, absolutely. There's not enough assembly plants feeding the local economy within Nigeria at all. I've felt this for 20 years, that there should be a Hilux assembly plant as an absolute minimum here, and there's not. How many Hiluxes knock around town? That has been a missed opportunity. So yes, in order to get an affordable product, which can then be easily mobilized and easily installed, I believe the demand will come, and an entrepreneur, possibly within this group, will see that there is a business opportunity for someone to make an agreement with an Indian or a Chinese or a German company. Maybe there will be a low cost, a mid cost and a high cost for the different players in the market who want a cheap and simple one for a rental property, up to a larger, more Rolls-Royce version for their permanent property. So there's probably many opportunities for businesses to build that in-country assembly plant to start with. There will be patent issues and patent concerns because there's such a large Chinese community within Nigeria. A lot of the high-tech patents, especially the electronic patents, the patent owners are reluctant to move those into Africa all over because they know that there's such a large Chinese contingent who will just replicate they will clone their technology and start making it under a clone Chinese banner. So it may be harder to get some of the more advanced solar panel technology assembled or constructed within Nigeria, but the hydroelectric, the hydrogen generation, the wind generation, and I'm sure Simon would be able to build or assemble a significant part of his biofuel generator. Absolutely, the market demand over a number of years will create that manufacturing arm, possibly in a free zone, possibly in an industrial zone. I've been involved in the Flares Out project with the gas in the Delta region for over 20 years now. And it's only now that we're starting to see a concerted effort to actually bring that gas up to industrial zones. So that was 20 odd years of talking to get something actually to start the construction phase and get some concrete and pipes and pylons on the ground. So to be realistic, that's why my presentation said that I believe this will be a phased step up. An initial demand from the small businesses, from the small communities is going to drive people's appetite to invest in the manufacturing. They will go out, they will get support agreements, joint venture agreements, technical support agreements, distributor agreements, assembly agreements, and then the cost will start to drop down, because then it will be assembled and built by Nigerian personnel in a Nigerian industrial zone. The transport will be so much less. There will be no import duties, and suddenly the whole thing takes off. But as I said, with the flares out project, getting the gas to power plants and then getting that power to industrial zones, 20 years in the making. So I wouldn't want to say in public that this is an overnight possibility. The hydrogen generation, at the moment, no, that is not a cost-effective technique to stand on its own right. It is really being used as a backup and a surplus and a storage technique. But as technology improves over the years, it will become more and more efficient. At the moment, I really only put it in here because it is one of the techniques for holding that power in a liquid form from when the wind is blowing, when the sun is shining, and holding it until you need it later on when you have a demand, when there's no wind and there's no sun. So was that all the questions, or was there one more?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So there's a question about the payback period, right? So you said 20 years from your own models. So I'm not saying, is there any way that can be compressed to a 5-7 year window that will still make sense? Because 20 years in Nigeria is like eternity, right?
Yes, and for these large projects, as I say, it will be driven from the smaller projects to start with. The efficiencies and the local supply chain and the availability of local parts, the availability of local technicians who can do your repair and maintenance. So at the moment, we've mentioned the exchange rate. So no, we cannot influence the exchange rate a huge amount. I expect currency devaluation to slowly go down and inflation will increase over the years. So that will offset any efficiency savings from European and other countries' capital import savings. So the cost savings that other countries find will possibly be offset. So the savings will have to come from a growing support and availability infrastructure within Nigeria. But yes, that will happen. It happens in every industry. People do learn their trade. They do become more efficient at it. They do start being able to offer the same service for a cheaper price. And that does bring the payback period down and make a solution more economically viable. And as I said in my presentation, remember that the price of fuel, diesel fuel in particular for generators, is going to continue rising. So that increased cost that we're comparing this with is going to continue increasing as oil becomes scarcer and diesel prices will increase. They'll fluctuate up and down a little bit, I'm sure, but in general, I expect the price of diesel fuel to continually increase for the rest of my working life, at least.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think, yeah, so mostly clear. I'm not sure if you fully addressed the question around what can we do, the private sector, what more can we do to accelerate the offtake from the ground up, right?
No, certainly linked to the answer to my first question, that investment in a local assembly manufacturing plant will be the biggest one. And then on the ops and maintenance side, investment of local providers in providing the spare parts and the infrastructure for the repair, operation, repair and maintenance. Those will be the two highest costs which have to be addressed locally to bring our cost of operating down. Huge business opportunities for those who get in at the ground level and become the premier provider. I actually worked with a company over the last year who have deliberately expanded into Kenya deliberately to learn their trade. Kenya has got one of Africa's best percentage of power generation being generated by renewable energy. So they've actually gone as part of a strategic expansion to learn the electrical installation, inspection, and maintenance trade, so that once the Nigerian industry is up and running, we've generated a Nigerian service company who can come back and say, we have a 10-year track record. We are Africa's expert in renewable energy operations and maintenance. So that type of model can be replicated across all aspects of the industry. Take the skills from other countries, learn your trade, bring it back, and provide cheaper, cost-effective services here in Nigeria for the benefit of all.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Roy. Thanks for the explanations. So yeah, so I'm now down to Simon Igwofose. I have tons of questions here. I'm not sure where to start from at this point. So let me just start from my own question, right? So when I heard, when I looked at your presentation and I saw the new technology and all, the first thing that came to my mind was cost, right? How affordable is this? And what is the smallest scale that you can have of this plant? Can you have a 10 kilowatt, a 50 kilowatt, a 100 kilowatt, or is the lowest 100 kilowatt system? And what is the cost of getting such a system together? So then there are lots of questions here from participants. One is asking that you need to explain more on agricultural waste. And there's a question here that that the fuel from plastic, can it produce flame that is free of pollutants? So there's concern about pollutants from using plastics, right? And Mr. Agbado is asking a question here. How was your company able to get current data on waste volumes, categories, etc., to base your projection? I assume that the data availability is usually an issue for investors. And then also, someone is asking that is not clear about your business model. Do you sell the unit to mini-grid operators you trade, or do you liaise with others to find location to install and run as a pay-as-you service provider? So I think we stop there. Okay, there's also another question here about, can municipal waste be used on your technology apart from agri waste? So I think, yeah, you can take this one.
Yeah, those are great questions, by the way, everybody. Well done. And thank you for having so much interest in pyrogenesis, which I may add, I was inspired really back in 2010, 2011. I'd come out of local government in the UK as an economic regeneration officer. I'd spent 6 months in Nigeria, effectively trying to see if I could return home, and looking for opportunities. And I realized that this electricity was a real issue. It was crippling Nigerian industry, and the cost of diesel and generators and all the rest of it. And I read an academic paper that was written by a Nigerian academic working with a British professor. So Dr. James Titiloy and Professor Tony Bridgewater of Aston University, they invented a technology for converting cassava peel into diesel, jet fuel, and value-added chemicals. So this was the thing that drew my attention to this technology, pyrolysis, and I said, right, I want to, if we can solve that problem for Nigeria, we've cracked it, yeah, because we're all running on diesel generator. So where is this going? Cost of a system. Really, we don't sell our technology. This is a new technology. This is, they've been, academics have been working on pyrolysis for decades, but there's nobody who's really cracked the commercial model. And it's like Barack Obama, he said, why didn't you guys join the dots? Yeah. So sometimes you have to have people who have and teams who have all these different insights and skill sets to see how you're going to take something that is a laboratory-based research and make it a commercial something that exists in the real world. So we have to protect our technology. And for that reason, most of all, we do not sell our technology. We will sell you power at X cents per kilowatt hour or X naira per kilowatt hour. And we will sell you biofuels at X amount per litre or X amount per ton, but we will not sell machines. So we can compete against solar and other technologies in an off-grid setting We do not compete with the NEPA equivalent. You know, those rates would not sustain our business model. So we're looking for specific opportunities where, you know, you've got a good return on the price per kilowatt hour. You've got other kind of like users that can use heat, process heat, because they want to do it, an agri-industry type business. And then one of the things that this ties in with, so like the question about agricultural waste, and then also about how do we know, you know, whether we've got enough. Right, so let me just, am I able to share my screen again? Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just share my screen again quickly. So this is our partner, University of Leicester. I said that we were funded by Innovate UK. And the UK government gave us money to work with University of Leicester. And this is satellite data. And it's geospatial data that Professor Kevin Tanzi, who's my project partner, and his team, effectively, the different colors, so this blue color can be population, this is houses, and then the brown colors might be crops. Now, what we've been working on in the project is using satellite data, we can tell where the population is and where the land is under cultivation, and even going to the extent of what type of crop is that, how much crop is it, when is it harvested, so when is the biomass available, okay? So these are the capabilities that enable us to say, is there a viable business case in that area? Because we need sufficient quantity of waste. So our system is built for 100 kilowatt scale. We do not make it larger, well, smaller, and we currently don't make it larger at the moment because there is enough demand just for that 100 kilowatt scale for Nigeria, immense. So we're happy just to stick at that scale for now. And then what that means is that we need about 1,000 tons of agricultural waste on average per year. So we need help with gathering all of that when it's harvested, storing it, well, of course, transporting it to our site, and then, you know, and then we can convert that using our technology over the next 12 months until the next harvest cycle, right? So agricultural waste, we can use any agricultural waste, any combustible waste, as long as it can burn, we can use it, okay? Municipal waste is very dirty, and it creates lots of problems. So unless it's a sorted we're looking for waste that's as uniform as possible. So in an agricultural setting, it's either going to be maize, cassava, rice, you know, it's going to be the same stuff. There's not going to be much variation. So we don't like variation. Municipal waste is full of variation, so we typically avoid it. Fuel from plastics and pollution-free. Plastics are actually a very clean source of hydrocarbon. They have to be. They're manufactured hydrocarbons, so they're very uniform feedstock. The problem comes when you have other materials that are not hydrocarbons in the plastic, and typically that's chlorine, right? So if it's got chlorine in it, it can cause problems. Now, what that means is that we have to develop treatments that remove the chlorine or deal with the chlorine so it then doesn't enter the atmosphere and become a pollutant. But effectively, because our technology is an advanced thermal technology, it acts as a separation process. It uses heat to separate different molecules. And then what that means is that we can focus on the stuff that we want, and that's what we want to convert into biofuels. And the other stuff that's nasty, we can have a way of dealing with that because it's an enclosed process. It's like a mini refinery, if you like, in a container. So this is how we avoid pollutions from the biofuels that we make, because we separate those out and we have treatments to avoid them. Okay, so I've answered the question about the cost. We don't sell. Agricultural waste, we can use pretty much anything that will burn. Fuel from plastic, data on waste volumes, we're going to use satellite data, and we have on-the-ground validation. So we work with partners like Babangona in the north, who have like tens of thousands of farmers that grow maize, and they're starting up a big rice program. And in the south, we work with African Agricultural Technology Foundation and AgriDrive, and they work with communities that are typically growing rice or cassava. And we're always looking for new organizations that we can work with who have those relationships with farming communities. If they can coordinate those farming communities into cooperatives or whatever, then that's great. We want to deal with B2B, okay? And then the business model. So yeah, we're not renting our equipment. We are selling electricity to typically a single off-taker who would be a mini grid operator. So that mini grid operator would not have had to go and invest in the power generation, or if they have, they don't have to invest as much because, you know, we can provide a power generation solution. So yeah, mini grid operators are ideal for us to work with. We sell them electricity, and then we sell process heat. And then we have, as I said, biofuels, which can be a solid biofuel, smokeless biofuel that can replace charcoal or firewood. We also have offtake partners in Europe who are ready to buy tens of thousands of tons of this material from us. So one of my jokes to people in UK is I'm telling them I'll soon be selling Nigerian waste to England. You know, so by converting it into charcoal, then we're using our waste from our crops. We'll sell it back. We'll sell it the other way. So that means that we can generate foreign exchange because we're going to get paid in pound sterling or euro or dollar. Okay, so you know, what we need is partnerships. We will build as many machines and as quickly as possible as we can. But when we're going to work with anybody, we typically want to have a cluster of about 10 machines at least. So we can check out your area, see if there's going to be a business case there. And then if we can say, yep, we can see 10 installations, we can raise the finance, you know, to pay, to set all that up. And then, you know, as long as you can guarantee us typically a 5-year power purchase agreement, if you can guarantee us an offtake contract for heat or for biochar, you know, the biochar briquettes, the smokeless fuel briquettes, brilliant. You know, industries that we've looked at, like rice growers. One of our partners is a technology developer called Cool Mill. They have a rice milling technology that uses 5 kilowatts, very low power, and can convert the typical rice that might not be very high grade into the same standard as international quality rice. So the husk that they produce, we would use that husk to power our mill. And then they would be giving their farmers, and they're pay as you go. So you pay for the service for milling every ton of rice, you pay them a fee. And then that means the local farmers can upgrade the value of their agricultural produce and compete against foreign imports. So check out Cool Mill, they'll spell KOOLMILL, right? Join with me on LinkedIn, you know, send me a connection you know, invite, or send an email to info@pyrogenesis.com. And there is another Pyrogenesis spelled SIS. It's a Canadian company, also does pyrolysis, but a different type. We are SYS. So just remember Pyro and then Genesis, you know, but we're a system, and I love the word and the concept of Genesis anyway. So we're bringing all these different things together to provide a solution that it took a Nigerian mindset, you know, that was sat in blackout, and then looking at the fact to see what some of our brothers were doing in the UK, excellent research with UK universities. Let me share one other screen with you about funding as well. This is a really important competition because this is where we got a lot of our funding from, right? And they will, you know, this is the UK government's funding that will, if you get a UK partner, this is a 20 million. It's currently open at the moment. So Energy Catalyst round 6 is what funded my project in Nigeria. So round 8 will finish on the 16th of September. 20 million, okay, to demonstrate innovative solutions for clean, affordable, and secure energy access in sub-Saharan Africa, okay, and Asia, right? So you can read all about it here. You will need a UK partner, right? And there's various events and information that they will pay Nigerian companies or organizations or research institutions to partner with UK businesses who have innovative technologies that they're looking for a marketplace in Africa or Asia. So this is a fantastic program. It's overseas development aid that is financing and investing in African infrastructure and providing solutions. Yeah, I'm happy to give anybody any information or point you in any direction I can that will be of assistance to you, because we have a huge problem with electricity and energy, access to energy, that our communities, if you give Nigerians access to continuous light and affordable electricity and then internet, my goodness, we're going to see something amazing happen. And I want to be part of that. You know, I don't want to be reading about somebody else doing it. I want to be doing it. And if you're like me, then get involved, get engaged, build your network. And there's plenty of people who are happy to help you. Okay. I'm not shy about sharing my contacts. There's enough opportunity in this world, you know. So there's no point being greedy. Let's just all work together. As engineers, we're trained to collaborate, right? And that's it, collaboration and trust, okay? If there's no trust, you can't have anything work. So, you know, you build relationships and you deliver, okay? Nobody chop something and then come with Tory. So we have to, you know, just work together, and we do what we say, and we say what we do. So I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn, and send an email, and I'm happy to set up calls and connect you with anybody that I can, you know, that will help you on your journey. Okay, God bless you all.
Yeah, thanks, thanks a lot, Simon. I think this will be a good place for us to wrap up the question and answer session. There are still tons of, questions, but we can't really attend to all the questions. So I think the organizers will find a way to compile the questions and maybe, get back, to the participants, to share some of the answers to those questions. And there are some questions, regarding making contact, asking about the contact, the. So I think the organizers, LCCI, should be able to, share our contact details with the participants so that we can have an ongoing discussion. For someone also actually ask the question around if we can have a forum, where we can continue, this discussion. So it's good for the organizers to look at this and see how we can continue this discussion even after the webinar. So at this stage, I think I will hand it back to Dr. Shegun, sorry, so that we can, wrap up the webinar. So thanks a lot, panelists, for the great work. This is just the beginning. Hopefully in the next couple of months and years, we'll have, testimonies, to say, of this, webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my very good friend, Harrison Ibu, and other panelists on this webinar. We want to appreciate your presence and your participation. Right now, I would like to invite the chairman, LCCI Science and Technology Committee, and vice president of LCCI, in the person of Mr. Engineer Lcci, to please give us the closing remarks and then the vote of thanks. Engineers, over to you.
Thank you, Shegun. It's a great pleasure today that we have to continue the journey that started sometimes in 1896. 1896, when the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry at that time advocated electricity for Lagos. And that vision came to fruition sometime in 1898. That's the journey we started years back. And we are still continuing. Just a 60 kilowatts power at that time. And mainly because of security at that time. Reason changes. But today we are in the forefront again. And we thank God that we have people like you that believe in this vision and have spent quality time to discuss it. Foursquare discussion on every side. To our centerman, the moderator, thank you very much for the way you have handled it, given the opportunity for all our speakers to express themselves and able to tell us the right way to go, and painted the future for Nigeria in renewable energy. More importantly, we thank you, Mr. Akintoye Oboye, to have highlighted all the opportunity there in Nigeria, giving us all the data and the gap that we need to fill. Mr. Roy, all the challenges that we will take as a country, you have highlighted everything for us to be able to see those challenges and see the best way that we can conquer this and move on. For Simon, we are expecting you back in Nigeria, definitely. A lot of opportunity here. The essence of this, as you said, is for us to join all those dots. As we are here today, and those who are listening to us, who are participating, the essence is that we need to join the dot and not to blame any other person than ourselves. We need to just move Nigeria forward, starting from the bottom. And those, it's even good that what we are looking at before is that over 90 million Nigerians have no access to power. Now, the statistic is now saying 85 million. That is 5 million is a lot of figure. And I think maybe our next outing, we'll start talking of less than 50 million Nigeria. And then we need to eradicate it. Thank you. And Simon, as I've said before, and Godfrey, we are representing the the Europe, and the journey has been a journey that has been a long one, and the opportunity that they are in that we are allowing us to see, we digest this and seize all this opportunity just to make sure that the benefit of power, which is the center of everything that we are doing. Before, it used to be the center of industry, but today power is the center of our life, either commercial, either your health, and every goddamn thing that we do today, power is so essential. On behalf of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, our president, who was ably represented by our vice chairman, the chairman of a trade promotion board, who will be a customer to our power, even for the staging of our trade fair, we need power. We thank you very much for having this time with us. And more importantly, our audience and those who are participating, we are so excited that we have hundreds of people that actually tune into this. It is important to our life and the life of every individual. Thank you all. We will come back again. And that is the essence of the registration that we have. And all the other questions that we cannot attend to will be sent to you individually. And those who are asking those questions, they will get the answer to question. And we will come back. We will have to sit down together with our panelists today, and then we have to move it forward and get a result. There must be a result that next time that we'll be able to say, thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for that wonderful closing remarks. And right about now, on behalf of Mrs. Toki Mabuje, President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, would like to thank everyone for participating and attending this webinar. And with that, we have come to the end of today's webinar. Once again, thank you for joining us, and goodbye.